I never imagined a simple classified ad could flip my whole world upside down, but here I am, wide-eyed in my room at 3 a.m., lights on, blanket wrapped around me like armor, flinching at every creak of the floorboards and whisper of wind against the window. I'm exhausted, but the thought of closing my eyes sends a cold ripple down my spine. It all started with a job posting buried in the corner of the local paper. Night shift attendant needed, Twilight gas and go, good pay, flexible hours, must be able to follow instructions precisely, apply in person. That was it. No contact info, no big promises, just vague enough to feel mysterious, just promising enough to seem like a decent gig. And I was desperate. My parents had been on my back non-stop, pestering me about getting a job before college started in the fall. You need the experience, they'd say. It'll build character, they'd say. I thought a night shift would be perfect. Everyone else would be asleep. I could listen to music, maybe read a book between customers. I'd still have my days free to chill with my friends, make the most of my last summer before everything changed. Honestly, how hard could it be? Stock a few shelves, maybe run the register once in a while. Easy money. But I didn't know then what I know now. I didn't know what kind of place the Twilight gas and go really was. And I definitely didn't know what they meant by follow instructions precisely. I figured the job would be quiet. Maybe a few late-night travelers grabbing gas or a snack, the occasional trucker stopping in for coffee. I even thought I might be able to get some studying done or catch up on reading during the slower hours. Honestly, it sounded like the perfect setup for an 18-year-old just trying to make some easy money before college. The Twilight gas and go sat right on the edge of town where the last row of suburban houses faded into a wall of thick woods. I'd driven past it plenty of times, but I'd never had a reason to stop. It always looked a little too run down for comfort, like it hadn't been updated since the 80s, with flickering lights and faded signage that gave it a kind of forgotten feel. Nothing like the bright modern chain stations further in town. When I showed up to apply, the manager, Mr. Thompson, was waiting behind the counter. He looked ordinary enough at first, mid-50s, greying hair, deep frown lines carved into his face. But it was his eyes that caught me off guard. They were too sharp, too focused, like he was waiting for something to go wrong at any second. The way he stared at me made me feel like I was already being tested. He barely even looked at my application. No questions, no small talk. Just a quick glance then. You can start tonight. I should have thought that was weird. I should have wondered why he was in such a hurry to hire someone, anyone, without even checking my references. But all I felt in that moment was relief. I had a job. I was in. If only I had known what I was really signing up for. His voice was gruff, stern, like someone who didn't waste words or care much for small talk. He handed me a small ring of keys and a folded sheet of paper, creased and slightly smudged, like it had been passed between too many hands. "Follow these rules exactly," he said, his gaze locking on mine. "You'll be fine." I thought it was going to be the usual stuff. Don't steal, keep the register balanced, don't let your friends hang around. But as I unfolded the paper, a cold, creeping feeling settled in my gut. The list wasn't anything close to normal. 1. Do not leave the store between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. under any circumstances. 2. If you hear knocking on the windows after midnight, do not respond. Do not look outside. 3. The phone will ring at exactly 2:15 a.m. Answer it. Say nothing, listen for 30 seconds, then hang up. 4. If a customer enters wearing all red, avoid eye contact. Scan their items like normal. Do not take cash. 5. The bathroom must stay locked at all times. If you hear anything inside, ignore it. Do not open the door. 6. At precisely 3:33 a.m., turn off all the lights. Stay completely still for 60 seconds, no matter what. 7. If you see a black dog in the parking lot, shut all the blinds. Recite the Lord's Prayer. Do not stop until it's gone. I stared at the list, half expecting Mr. Thompson to crack a smile or say it was all some kind of weird initiation joke. He didn't. "Got it?" he asked. I nodded slowly, unsure of what I was agreeing to. He handed me the keys and turned away like that was the end of it. And just like that, I was on my own. 8. The coffee machine will turn on by itself at exactly 4 a.m. Let it run. Do not touch it. Do not drink what it brews. 9. If a customer asks for anything from the back room, politely decline. Suggest they try a different gas station. Do not, under any circumstance, go back there. At 5:55 a.m., place a single penny on the counter. It will disappear by 6 a.m. If it's still there, call the emergency number on the back of this list immediately. I let out a nervous laugh, waiting for the punchline. Maybe it was some hazing ritual for new hires, creepy, sure, but kind of creative. A gas station horror scavenger hunt. But Mr. Thompson didn't laugh, he didn't even blink. "Kid," he said, his voice dropping into a gravelly tone that made the hairs on my arms stand up. "These rules aren't for show, they're not some joke to scare off the lazy ones." He leaned in just a little, his eyes locked on mine, intense, unblinking. "They're for your safety, and the safety of everyone in this town." I swallowed hard, the grin fading from my face. I wanted to say something, to ask if he was serious, but something in his expression made the words stick in my throat. He wasn't trying to scare me, he was warning me. I nodded, unsure of what I was agreeing to, but a cold knot had already begun to tighten in my gut. This wasn't going to be just another summer job. He hesitated at the door, hand on the handle, casting one last look over his shoulder. His voice dropped to a whisper, almost swallowed by the low hum of the flickering fluorescence. "Oh, and one more thing," he said. "Whatever you do, don't fall asleep." Then he was gone, disappearing into the night without another word, leaving me alone in that buzzing, half-lit gas station, with nothing but a crumpled sheet of unsettling rules and a growing sense of unease. I spent the next few hours trying to shake it off, told myself it was just some over-the-top initiation, a test to see if I'd spook easy. Maybe Mr. Thompson got his kicks from scaring new hires. Maybe he wanted to see who had the guts to stick around. But no matter how many times I tried to laugh it off, that feeling wouldn't go away, that crawling dread coiled tight in my stomach like something was watching me, waiting. When I finally got in my car and headed out for my first shift, the world felt wrong. Off, somehow. The streets I'd driven down 1,000 times felt unfamiliar in the darkness. The streetlights buzzed louder than usual. The shadows between houses seemed to stretch and shift when I wasn't looking straight at them. Twice I thought I saw something dart across the road just beyond my headlights, low to the ground, too fast to catch more than a glimpse. My heart pounded harder each time, even as I tried to convince myself it was just a raccoon or a stray dog. When I pulled into the lot at Twilight Gas & Go, the clock on my dashboard read 9:56 p.m. The station looked just as run down as I remembered. Faded signs, one light above the pumps flickering like it was on its last breath. But what really struck me was the silence. No cars on the road, no crickets, no wind in the trees, just stillness, heavy and absolute. It was the kind of quiet that made you feel like you were being watched. And that was before the real weirdness even started. There was a strange weight in the air that night, a kind of oppressive silence that seemed to press in from all sides as I pulled into the lot, like the darkness itself was holding its breath. Mr. Thompson was already inside, waiting behind the counter. His expression was as grim as ever. He gave me a quick, no-frills rundown, how to work the register, where the supplies were, what to do in case of an emergency. But he kept checking his watch like he couldn't wait to get out of there. "Remember the rules," he said, as he made his way to the door. "No matter what happens, no matter what you see or hear, follow the rules." Then he left, the bell over the door jingling faintly in the silence that followed. And just like that, I was alone. The first part of the shift was surprisingly normal, almost boring. I kept glancing at the windows, half expecting something to go wrong at any moment. But it was just a typical night. A few late-night drivers came in for snacks, gas, smokes, nothing unusual, no one in red, no black dog, just me, the hum of the overhead lights, and the distant buzz of the cooler. Still, I followed the rules, just in case. At 2:15 a.m., right on the dot, the phone rang. My stomach dropped. Hands sweating, I picked it up and held it to my ear. For 30 long seconds, I listened to nothing but static, soft, shifting white noise that almost sounded like a whisper buried beneath it. Then it cut off. I felt silly for how tense I'd gotten. It was probably just a glitch, or a prank, right? At 3:33 a.m., I switched off all the lights and stood completely still in the dark, just like the instructions said. I counted the seconds in my head, hyper-aware of every sound, the hum of the freezer, the faint crack of the old building settling, my own breathing. When the minute passed, I flipped the lights back on. Nothing had changed. At 4 a.m., the coffee machine sputtered to life on its own. I jumped a little, but stayed behind the counter, watching as it brewed a perfect pot, steam rising, rich aroma filling the store. It smelled incredible. I almost poured myself a cup. Almost. But the rule echoed in my mind, do not drink the coffee. So I didn't. Finally, at 5:55 a.m., I took a penny from my pocket and placed it on the counter. At exactly 6 o'clock it was gone. I never heard the door open. No footsteps, no chime. It just vanished. By the time I clocked out, I felt a strange blend of relief and, oddly, disappointment. Relief that nothing horrifying had happened. Disappointment that it all felt like some elaborate prank. But even as the morning sun lit up the horizon, I couldn't quite shake the feeling that something had watched me all night, that something had tested me and was satisfied. Maybe it really was just some kind of elaborate joke. The first night had been so quiet, so normal, that by the time I clocked in for my second shift, I'd almost convinced myself the rules were just a bizarre prank, some quirky hazing ritual for new employees. Nothing more, but that illusion didn't last long. It was around 1:30 a.m. I was restocking the chip aisle, zoning out a bit when I heard it. A soft, deliberate knock on the front window. I froze. Rule number 2, if you hear knocking on the windows after midnight, ignore it. Do not look outside. There it was again, louder, sharper, closer. My heart slammed against my ribs as I clenched the bag of chips in my hand, knuckles whitening. Don't look, don't look. It's probably just the wind, I whispered to myself, or some drunk playing around. But the knocking didn't stop. It grew louder, more persistent. What started as a gentle tapping turned into something heavier, more urgent. And then it moved, from the front window to the side, then to the back. Tap, slam window to window, as if something was circling the building, dragging its fingers, or claws, along the glass. Sometimes it was a light, almost curious rapping. Other times, a furious pounding that made the frames tremble. The sound felt too intentional, too intelligent, and always it stayed just out of sight. I stood frozen in place, every muscle locked, staring down the chip bags in front of me like they held the key to survival. Minutes passed, or maybe it was only seconds. Time stretched thin in that kind of fear. Then, silence. A silence so deep, so unnatural, it felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. I let out a shaky breath, only then realizing I'd been holding it. My hands were trembling, my shirt clung to my back with cold sweat. I had just started to relax, just started to believe it was over, when the phone rang. 2:15 a.m. right on schedule. And for the first time, I wasn't sure I wanted to answer it. The phone rang, slicing through the silence and making me jump. I glanced at the clock. 2:15 a.m., right on the dot. With hands that wouldn't stop trembling, I picked up the receiver and held it to my ear. At first, just static, same as the night before. But then, something new. Beneath the crackle, I heard whispering, soft, almost imperceptible, like someone murmuring just beyond the edge of understanding. I pressed the receiver tighter, straining to catch the words, but they were too faint, like wind brushing across a microphone. Then the whispers grew louder, sharper, urgent, frantic, a dozen voices talking over each other, each one unintelligible but filled with desperation. And just before I pulled the phone away, ready to hang up, I heard it, my name, clear as day, whispered like a secret, right into my ear. I slammed the receiver down, heart pounding in my chest. The rest of the shift was a blur of paranoia. Every creak of the building made me flinch. Every gust of wind against the glass sent adrenaline spiking through me. By the time 6 a.m. rolled around, I was already halfway to the door. I didn't even clock out, I just left. I seriously considered quitting that morning, but the pay was decent, and there was a part of me that wanted to know more. What if it wasn't just superstition? What if something real was happening here? Besides, I didn't want Mr. Thompson thinking I couldn't handle it. So I came back. Night 3, then 4, then 5. Things quieted down. No more whispering phone calls, no black dogs, no customers in red. I followed every rule to the letter. Lights out at 3:33 a.m., no matter what. Ignored the knocks, even when they came with furious intensity. Dropped the penny at 5:55 a.m. sharp, every time. But the weirdness didn't stop. Some nights, when the store was empty, I'd catch glimpses of movement just at the edge of my vision. A flicker of motion down an aisle, a shadow slipping behind a shelf. And whenever I turned to look, some nights I'd be stocking the shelves, minding my own business, when I'd turn around and find things out of place, items rearranged or moved to spots where they definitely hadn't been before. The bathroom was the worst, even though I kept it locked, per the rules. There were times when I'd hear noises coming from inside. Sometimes it was the sound of running water or the flush of a toilet. Other times it sounded like muffled screams or something large thrashing around, desperate to escape a confined space. I'd shudder, trying to push the noises out of my mind. It wasn't until about a week into the job that I had my first encounter with a red customer. It was a quiet night, the kind that makes you start to drift, half-dazed behind the counter. Then the bell above the door jingled. I snapped to attention. She walked in slowly, the sound of her heels on the cracked tiles echoing in the stillness. My heart went cold. The woman was dressed in crimson head to toe, everything red. Her shoes, her dress, even a red hat perched on her head, casting a shadow over her face. She walked up to the counter, and in that instant, everything Mr. Thompson had told me came rushing back. Do not look them in the eye. Do not accept cash from them. I quickly averted my gaze, staring down at the register, my hands suddenly slick with sweat. "Good evening," she said, her voice oddly melodic, almost too smooth. "I'd like to purchase these, please." She set a few items on the counter, a pack of gum, a lighter, and a magazine. The simplicity of her choices made everything feel off. My hands shook as I rang her up, eyes fixed firmly on the register. I could feel her watching me, the weight of her gaze heavy even without looking. "That'll be $7.50, I said, my voice cracking slightly as I tried to keep it steady. "Oh dear," she replied, her voice almost too sweet. "I only have cash. Is that a problem?" I swallowed hard. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but we can't accept cash at the moment. Our system is down. Maybe you could try another gas station." There was a long, uncomfortable pause. I could feel her staring at me, but I kept my eyes fixed on the register, refusing to look up. "Very well," she said, her tone surprisingly calm. "I suppose I'll have to come back another time?" As she turned to leave, I made the fatal mistake of glancing up, just for a split second. Our eyes met. And what I saw made my stomach drop. Her eyes, no, they weren't eyes at all. They were just two deep, empty voids as black as the darkest night. A cold, paralyzing dread shot through me, freezing me in place. I couldn't breathe. I wanted to scream, to run, but I was trapped. I couldn't move. The bell chimed again as she left, and I collapsed against the counter, gasping for air, my heart thudding in my chest. I don't know how long I sat there, shaking, unable to get a full breath. Time lost all meaning. It took me what felt like hours to calm myself enough to stand up straight again. The rest of the shift was a blur of anxiety and paranoia. Every little noise made me flinch. Every shadow in the corner of my eye made me jump. I spent the next few hours expecting the red woman to return, but when 6 a.m. finally came, I was physically drained, every nerve on edge. Just as I was about to clock out, Mr. Thompson showed up to take over. He looked me over for a moment, then frowned, his gaze sharpening. "You saw something, didn't you?" he asked quietly. I nodded, unable to find my voice, the words stuck in my throat. He sighed heavily, his expression heavy with something I couldn't quite place. "Look, kid, I know it's tough, but you're doing good. Just keep following the rules and you'll be fine." I wanted to ask him so many questions. What was really happening here? Why all the strange rules? Who was that woman in red? But the way he looked at me, like he was both tired and haunted, told me everything. He wouldn't, or maybe couldn't, give me any answers. Over the following weeks, I settled into a strange rhythm. The bizarre events, while still unnerving, became almost normal, in a twisted way. I got used to the nightly phone calls, the mysterious coffee machine turning itself on, and even the occasional sounds from the locked bathroom. They became part of the job, part of the price of the paycheck. But then, one night, everything changed. It started out like any other shift. I was about halfway through the night when a man walked in, looking for cigarettes. He was friendly enough, making small talk about the weather, grumbling about gas prices as I rang him up. Then, without warning, he glanced toward the back of the store. "Hey, you wouldn't happen to have any of those special energy drinks, would you?" he asked, his voice casual, but with a hint of something else, something I couldn't place. Casually, the ones from the back room. My blood ran cold. I froze, my eyes darting to the back of the store, recalling rule number 9. "I'm sorry, sir," I said carefully, trying to keep my voice calm. "We don't have a back room here. Maybe try the gas station down the road." The man's friendly demeanor evaporated instantly. His eyes narrowed, and his voice dropped to a low growl. "Don't lie to me, boy," he spat, his tone menacing. "I know you have them. Give me what I want, or things are going to get real unpleasant for you." My heart was pounding in my chest. I tried to steady my breathing, forcing my voice to stay firm. "I'm sorry, but we don't have what you're looking for. I'm going to have to ask you to leave." For a moment I thought he was going to lunge at me, to come across the counter in a blur of rage. But, to my relief, he turned on his heel and stormed out of the store. I exhaled, my breath shaky, and slumped against the counter, trying to gather myself. But then I heard it. A low, guttural growl, rumbling from outside. My pulse skyrocketed as I glanced up. There, in the parking lot, standing still in the dark like a shadow made flesh, was an enormous black dog. Its fur was sleek and gleaming in the faint light, but what made my blood run colder than ice were its eyes, glowing an unnatural red, fixed directly on me. The panic hit me like a wave, and I remembered the rule. Rule number 7. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely get the blinds closed. I fumbled with the cords, panic threatening to overtake me, but I forced myself to focus. As I drew the last blind, a terrible sound pierced the air, scratching at the door. My heart pounded in my ears, and I could feel the sweat dripping down my back. The dog's snarls and barks were muffled by the glass, but they were enough to make my skin crawl. I quickly started reciting the Lord's Prayer, my voice trembling as I forced the words out. "Our Father, who art in heaven." The scratching grew louder, more frantic. The dog was relentless, its claws scraping against the door in a way that made my stomach turn. "Hallowed be thy name." Then came a deafening thud, something massive slamming into the door with enough force to rattle the glass. I flinched, but didn't stop. I had to keep going. "Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven." Another thud, harder this time, followed by a savage bark that sounded more like a growl of pure fury. The noises outside escalated, reaching a fever pitch. It sounded as though the dog was trying to tear the entire building apart. and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us." The scratching, the snarling, the thuds, they were deafening, overwhelming. I felt the walls vibrating under the pressure, like the dog was trying to break through and drag me into the night with it. Then suddenly, everything went eerily quiet. The silence was almost more terrifying than the noise had been. It pressed in on me, heavy and suffocating. I continued whispering the prayer, repeating it 2 more times, my voice barely audible over the pounding of my heart. When I finally mustered enough courage to peek out from behind the counter, I couldn't believe what I saw. The parking lot was empty, no sign of the dog, no signs of anything at all. It was like the night had swallowed it whole. I spent the rest of the shift huddled behind the counter, every creak of the building, every gust of wind outside making me jump. My nerves were shot, my senses on high alert. When 3:33 a.m. rolled around, I almost felt a sense of relief as I turned off the lights, letting the darkness settle around me. At least then I couldn't see anything lurking in the shadows. As dawn approached, a fragile sense of calm started to creep in. I had made it through another night. I was placing the penny on the counter at 5:55 a.m., just like I always did, when the bell over the door chimed. I looked up, expecting to see Mr. Thompson arriving early. Instead, I saw the man from before, the one who had asked about the back room. And this time, he wasn't alone. With him was the woman in red, along with several other people, all with those same unsettling, empty black eyes. They moved like shadows, silently filing into the store, surrounding the counter. I froze. My throat went dry. "We're closed," I stammered, even though it wasn't quite 6 a.m. yet. The man smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. It was cold, twisted, and predatory. "Oh, I think you'll want to stay open for us," he said, his voice smooth, too smooth. "We've come for what's in the back room, and this time we're not taking no for an answer." I glanced at the door, my mind racing, trying to figure out an escape. But there was no way out. They had already surrounded me. The clock read 5:59 a.m., just 1 more minute and my shift would be over. Maybe Mr. Thompson would arrive and he'd know what to do. But they weren't leaving. "There is no back room," I insisted, my voice trembling, despite my best efforts to sound confident. "Please, you need to leave." The woman in red stepped forward, her heels clicking on the floor with each deliberate step. "We know there is," she replied, her voice still that hauntingly melodic tone, but now laced with an undercurrent of menace. "And we know you have the key. Give it to us and we'll let you live." My heart thudded in my chest, each beat a desperate plea for escape. I shook my head, backing away until my back hit the wall behind the counter. "I don't have any key. I don't know what you're talking about." The group of them began to advance, their eyes gleaming in the harsh fluorescent light, each step deliberate, predatory. Panic surged through me, my breaths shallow and fast, threatening to overwhelm my mind. I frantically scanned the room, looking for any way out, but the door felt miles away and the windows were covered. Then, as though by some miracle, something inside me clicked. The rules had kept me safe all this time. Maybe they could help now. With trembling hands, I reached for the light switch. The group paused, their footsteps faltering, confused by my sudden action. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to steady my nerves, and flicked the switch. Darkness enveloped the store in an instant. I held my breath, counting the seconds in my head. 1, 2, 3. I could hear them moving around in the dark, their footsteps echoing on the linoleum floor. Something brushed against my arm and I had to bite my lip to keep from crying out. I didn't dare make a sound. 58, 59, 60. I flipped the lights back on. The sudden brightness made my eyes sting, but what I saw nearly made my heart stop. The store was empty, no sign of the menacing group, no sign that anyone had been there at all. For a moment I stood there, stunned, wondering if I had imagined the whole thing. But just as I started to relax, The bell above the door chimed, and I turned to see Mr. Thompson walking in, looking as grim as ever. "You did good, kid," he said, his voice rough, but with a hint of something resembling admiration. "Not many make it this far." I had a million questions, but all I could manage was a shaky breath as I stood frozen, still trying to make sense of everything that had just happened. It had been a week since the night everything changed, but even after all that time I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, that I had missed something important. What were they? What did they want? Mr. Thompson shook his head, his expression dark. "Trust me, kid, you're better off not knowing." He paused, almost as if weighing his next words carefully. "Go home. Get some rest. And maybe start looking for a different job. This life, it's not for everyone." I nodded numbly, too exhausted to argue, and gathered my things. The weight of it all felt unbearable. As I turned to leave, he called after me, his voice lower now, almost a whisper. "Oh, and kid, whatever you do, don't take any job offers from them, no matter what they promise you." The words sent a chill down my spine, but I didn't say anything. I just hurried out into the morning light, the weight of his warning hanging over me like a storm cloud. For the next few days, I tried to convince myself it had all been some kind of stress-induced hallucination. Maybe I had fallen asleep at the counter and dreamt the whole thing. But deep down, I knew it had been real. I couldn't explain it, but the feeling in my gut told me everything I needed to know. I didn't go back to the gas station. I couldn't. There was something there. Something waiting for me. But I couldn't face it. I tried to forget, to move on. But no matter how hard I tried, I knew it wasn't over. And somehow, deep in my bones, I felt like it never would be. Strange things started happening at home after I quit the job. I'd wake up in the middle of the night to find all the lights in my room turned on. Sometimes I'd hear whispering coming from my closet, but when I looked inside, there was nothing there. One night, about a week after I left the gas station, I woke up to find a penny on my nightstand. My blood ran cold as I remembered the last rule. At 5:55 a.m., place a single penny on the counter. It will be gone by 6 a.m. If it isn't, call the emergency number immediately. I glanced at my alarm clock, 5:54 a.m. With trembling hands, I picked up the penny and placed it on my desk. Then I sat at the edge of my bed, watching, waiting. 5:55 a.m. came and went. The penny didn't move. At 5:59, I started to relax. Maybe it was just a coincidence. Maybe I had left the penny there myself and forgotten about it. Then, just as the clock ticked over to 6 a.m., I heard it. A soft knock at my bedroom window. I froze, remembering the second rule from the gas station: if you hear knocking on the windows after midnight, ignore it. Do not look. Outside, the knocking came again, more insistent this time. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to block it out. But then I heard the voice. It was Mr. Thompson's, but something was off. It sounded distorted, warped, like it was being pulled through static. "Kid," the voice said, low and eerie. "We need to talk. There's been a change in management at the gas station. We've got an opening for assistant manager. The pay's good, and the benefits, well, let's just say they're out of this world." I could feel myself being drawn toward the window. My mind screamed at me to resist, to stay far away, but my body moved of its own accord, inching closer. Part of me desperately wanted to look, to see if it really was Mr. Thompson out there, but a deeper, primal instinct told me that whatever was outside my window, it wasn't human anymore. "All you have to do is say yes," the voice coaxed. "Say yes, and all of this can be over. No more fear, no more—" "Just say yes." I clenched my fists, fighting the overwhelming urge to respond. "No," I whispered, barely hearing my own voice. "No, I don't want the job." There was a long, tense pause. Then the voice spoke again, and all pretense of kindness was gone, replaced with a cold, threatening tone. "You can't run from this forever, kid. Sooner or later, you'll come back. They always do." I heard something scratching at the window, sharp claws raking against the glass. The sound sent a chill through my bones, and then silence. When I finally worked up the courage to open my eyes and look, the sun was rising, casting a pale light into the room. The penny was gone from my desk. The window was unmarked, no sign of anything ever being there. But deep down, I knew it wasn't over. Whatever had been unleashed that night at the gas station, whatever dark forces had taken root in this town, they weren't finished with me. Not by a long shot. I'm writing this now, hoping someone will believe me. Hoping that if I disappear, someone will know what happened. If you're reading this, heed my warning. Be careful of job offers that seem too good to be true. Be suspicious of places that only operate in the dark hours. And if you ever find yourself working at a gas station with a strange set of rules, follow them no matter what. Because the things that hide in the shadows, they're real, and they're always watching, always waiting for someone to make a mistake. As for me, I don't know how much longer I can keep running. Every night I hear the knocking. Every day I find a new penny. And every time I close my eyes, I see those empty black eyes staring back at me. I'm afraid to sleep, afraid to stay awake, afraid that one day I'll give in and say yes to whatever it is that's calling me. If you're reading this, please, for your own sake, be careful. And if you ever see a "Help Wanted" sign in the window of the Twilight gas station, don't stop. Don't even look back, because once you're inside, there's no way out. Not really. The night shift never ends. I've been writing this account for days now, trying to get it all down before whatever's coming happens. I can feel them drawing closer. The knocking is almost constant now, like it's just outside my door. I know they're waiting for me to slip up. I know they're closing in. Please, stay away from that place. It's too late for me, but it doesn't have to be for you. The knocking is constant now, and I keep finding pennies everywhere, in my pockets, in my food, under my pillow, when I wake up. Last night, I dreamed I was back at the gas station. Everything was the same, but twisted. The fluorescent lights flickered with a sickly green glow, casting long, unnatural shadows. The shelves were stocked with products I'd never seen before, their labels written in languages that seemed to burn my eyes when I looked at them. Mr. Thompson was there, standing behind the counter, but when he turned to face me, his eyes were black voids, just like the others. "Welcome back," he said, his voice echoing unnaturally. "Your shift is about to begin." I woke up in a cold sweat, my heart pounding in my chest, and for a moment, just a split second, I could have sworn I smelled the distinctive odor of the gas station, gasoline, stale coffee, and something else, something that didn't belong in this world, and something else, something I could never quite identify. I don't know how much longer I can hold out. Part of me wants to run, to pack a bag, to just drive until I run out of road, but another part of me knows it wouldn't matter. Whatever this is, wherever I go, it will find me. Sometimes, in my weaker moments, I find myself considering their offer. Would it really be so bad to give in, to say yes? At least then the fear and uncertainty would be over. But then I remember the look in their eyes, the bottomless emptiness, and I know I can't. Whatever they're offering, the price is too high. So I'll keep fighting, keep resisting for as long as I can. To whoever finds this, I don't know if I'll still be here when you read these words. If I'm not, if I've disappeared like I suspect so many others before me have, please, don't come looking for me. Don't try to investigate. Just get this story out there. Let people know the truth about what's happening in our quiet little town. And if you ever find yourself driving late at night and you see a gas station on the outskirts of town, one that doesn't quite feel right, just keep driving. Don't stop. Because once you do, there's no going back. The town's lights flicker like a beacon in the vast, dark expanse. Keep driving. No matter how drained you feel, no matter how desperate for gas or a quick cup of coffee, just keep moving forward. The night shift is always hiring, and once you're on it, there's no leaving. This is my final entry. I can hear something knocking at my bedroom door, even though I live alone. I don't know what awaits when I open it, but I can't ignore it forever. Whatever happens next, remember this: the rules exist for a reason. Follow them without question. And above all else, never fall asleep on the job.